Hello everybody and welcome back to Let's Play ChäoS. Let me go ahead and get my timer started. 1 second. Would you kill me? Nanami's face stiffened at my words, but she soon put on a forced smile.
お兄、つまんない冗談やめなよ。
That reaction wasn't like Nanami. Normally, rather than laughing and letting it slide, there was no doubt that she'd get pissed off and preach at me, "Don't say that kind of thing, moron." Well, it wasn't like I cared. It didn't matter. If she wouldn't kill me, I no longer had any business with this Nanami. I wouldn't mind if she vanished right away. Seira and I gazed at each other. If Seira were three-dimensional, she would surely be delighted to grant my wish. If I were going to be born as a delusionary existence anyway, I'd have wanted to be born in the second dimension.
ねえ、そんな冗談は置いといて、その話があるんだ。あのね、お兄にもらったバングル、なくしちゃったの。どうせ適当に扱ってたんだろうとか言わないでね。ナナ、そんなことしてないもん。本当に大切にしてたもん。なのに、どこでなくしたのかもわかんなくて。
She treasured such a thing? How comical. From my perspective, there had to be a limit to how comical she could get. When you got down to it, it was something I'd given her. That sort of thing had no value.
僕は妄想じゃない。僕は妄想じゃない。
Okay. For starters, there was no reason to suspect whether or not I'd given Nanami the bracelet in the first place. Even that event may have been imaginary. Therefore, nothing in this world had any value. Nothing appearing in my memories had any value.
僕は妄想じゃない。僕は妄想じゃない。
お兄が初めてくれたプレゼントだったのにな。なんでなくしちゃったりしたんだろう。
僕は妄想じゃない。僕は妄想じゃない。
Okay, apparently we're just gonna keep repeating, I am not a delusion.
お兄、聞いてる？
Clearly not.
僕は妄想じゃない。僕は妄想じゃない。
お兄はどうしていつもそうなの？
Head lowered, fists clenched, Nanami muttered.
たまにはお兄ちゃんらしく頼りがいのあるとこ見せてよ。
What? You've come barking up the wrong tree if you're gonna accuse me, because I'm a delusionary existence.
僕は妄想じゃない。僕は妄想じゃない。
And yet immediately after saying that we are a delusionary existence, we immediately start saying, I am not a delusion again. All I stared at was Seira's smile. There was no need to hear out what Nanami had to say. No point in listening, because I'm a delusionary existence.
今までずっとナナがしっかりしなきゃって思って頑張ってきたけど、でもね、やっぱりナナだってたまには誰かに甘えたいよ。誰かにじゃなくてお兄に甘えたいよ。
僕は妄想じゃない。僕は妄想じゃない。
だってお兄はナナのお兄なんだから。お兄に頼りたいって思うことナナにもあるんだよ。
僕は妄想じゃない。僕は妄想じゃない。
そりゃ、いつもああしろこうしろ言われて、お兄も嫌だろうけど。それは、お兄がだらしないから仕方なく。言いたいことはそういうことじゃなくて。
僕は妄想じゃない。僕は妄想じゃない。
Eventually, she's gonna say something that'll snap us out of this, I imagine.
ナナだって、いろいろ愚痴を聞いてもらいたい時とか、泣きたい時とか、あるんだよ。お兄に優しくしてもらいたい時とか、あるんだよ。
僕は妄想じゃない。僕は妄想じゃない。ね
え、お兄、ナナの話、聞いてよ。ナナ、今、すごく、悲しいんだよ。お兄にもらった、大切なバングル、なくなっちゃって。声出して、泣きたいくらい、悲しくて、辛くて、お兄に、抱きしめてほしいのに。お兄に頭撫でて慰めてほしいのに。ねえ、お兄、今日だけはナナのわがまま受け止めてよ。
I absentmindedly raised my face. Nanami was crying. Even while she hung her head and fought to withstand it, tears kept falling from her bitterly. Oh, okay, apparently we were pretty close to the end there. And if I had let the last part go for another 7 minutes, we would have gotten to that transition. Upon opening the glass door and entering a place resembling a lobby, Sakihata Rimi shuddered. Air that seemed cold enough to freeze her came crawling up her legs. She sensed no one nearby, which was natural enough considering what kind of place this was. But when she thought about what waited ahead of her, Rimi ended up wanting someone to be here. Immediately in front of her was a soundproof door, the kind found in movie theaters. A coldness came floating from the crack beneath it, along with a white mist akin to dry ice. Rimi bit her lip hard. She held her D-sword with both hands. She had already rebooted it.
だから大丈夫。だから怖がっちゃダメだ。
Desperately telling herself this, Rimi gulped in a breath, then pushed the soundproof door open with her shoulder. Rimi's eyes widened at the spectacle spreading out there, all too colossal, a device that brought monsters to mind. It was ensconced in the center of a dome-shaped room. An eerie noise resounded faintly through the room's spacious interior. It was low, a sound like a beast growling, a sound signifying that the device was in operation.
の圧、もう動いてるんだ。
君のおかげですよ。
A voice responded to the antiquity in Rimi's monologue, or excuse me, the antipathy, not antiquity. I don't know why the hell I was thinking antiquity. The instant that voice reached her ears, Rimi felt her soul quake.
崎畑リミ。1年半ぶりですね。
Rimi's instinct harbored terror. A trembling surged up from the depths of her heart. Hateful memories assaulted her. Her shadowed past seemed about to resurrect itself. Shaking her head lightly and clenching her D-sword harder to endure it, Rimi swept her gaze toward the direction where the voice had come from. A vast apparatus, Noah too, beside it, the figure of a tall, suit-clad man, and...
Nana-chan!
Nishijo Nanami was being held captive there. Her torn uniform, the blood-soaked bandage on her right wrist, her limply hanging head, her horribly pallid complexion. God damn it. I don't know why I'm struggling to say that word today, or at least right now. She made such a beautiful sight, Rimi lost all, or excuse me, not beautiful, a painful sight. Rimi lost all words. Like the crucified Jesus of Nazareth. No, that which captured Nanami wasn't something one could call a cross. It was a long way off, with so much malice filling its shape. All the evil in this world, all the chaos in this world, all the corruption in this world. It wouldn't have been an exaggeration to say that it represented all of them in a tangible form.
君がこの1年半どこで何をしていたかについて興味はありませんが、困りますね。あまりうろちょろされると。
If you get in the way overmuch. I don't think I've ever heard overmuch as a word, and certainly not as a phrase, as part of a sentence. That man, Norase Genichi, had a placid manner of speaking, but his voice encompassed a blade-like sharpness. Frantically keeping herself from sinking down on the spot, Rimi glared at him.
ナナちゃんを話して。
ほう。まさかここに来たのはお友達を助けに来たという理由ですか？
ナナちゃんを話して。その子は何も関係ないでしょ。
では直接話してみてはどうですか？
Norase's suggestion confused Rimi. She was bluffing now, but the instant she saw Norase's face, her heart had awoken to fear, and her legs had begun quivering. Incapable of moving, she called out to Nanami, pinned up there.
ナナちゃん。
Nanami's head twitched. Slitting open her closed eyes, she raised her face and caught Rimi in her empty sight.
リミさん。大丈夫？今、助けてあげるから。
Midway through Rimi's sentence, Nanami's face contorted in anguish. She went white and took ragged breaths.
痛いよ。右手が痛いの。
With a slither, Nanami's body slipped down from the cross.
ナナちゃん。ねえ、リミさん。
Lying down, lifting only her head, Nanami made her gaze drift about, as if she were searching for something.
ナナのバングル知らないかな。見つからなくて。ナナのバングルどこにもなくて。
Staggering upright, this time she began feeling around the area with her left hand.
バングルだね。わかった。私知ってるから。だから私と一緒にここを出よう。病院に行こう。ね。手が痛いよ。ナナはなんでリミさんのことを知ってるんだっけ？前にどこで会ったんだっけ？リミさんなの？リミさんがナナのバングル？嘘。どうして？ひどいよ。
Realizing something was odd about Nanami, Rimi swiftly looked over at Norase. He was silently watching Rimi and Nanami's exchange, a mocking smile on his lips.
ナナちゃんに何を見せてるの？
Nanami's gaze was fixed on Rimi. She stood all the way up, slowly shaking like a newborn fawn, and extended her right hand as though to offer her upturned palm in Rimi's direction. A blood-stained bandage. It almost looked as if her hand were connected. But one scarlet droplet after another dripped and fell from it without stopping. A puddle of blood was forming at Nanami's feet. She needed treatment quickly. On the reverse side of her sense of urgency, Rimi wasn't able to draw any closer because approaching Nanami also meant approaching that man. It frustrated her so much, she found herself on the verge of weeping.
リミさんが持ってたの？ナナちゃん、帰ろう。こっちに来て。どうして持ってくの？
We didn't take it.
返して。ナナのバングル、返して。落ち着いて、ナナちゃん。お兄からもらったナナの大切な。あれは誰にも渡したくないの。返して。返してよ。ナナちゃん、返して。
Together with her cry of lamentation, one of the drops of blood spilled from Nanami's wrist. One of the drops of blood spilling from Nanami's wrist rapidly crystallized before falling to the floor. With the drop at its core, a material like some kind of mineral came flying out of nothingness. Almost as though inorganic carapace were ripped through a rift in space. In the blink of an eye, it came together to form a single shape. One far more reminiscent of a cross than the thing that had previously held Nanami. Or else, standing perpendicularly, as though to reject everything before it, a sword.
これはディソード。返してよ。お願い。
You know, I'm kind of getting the feeling that, I know I've mentioned in the past that I thought the dude in the wheelchair was maybe the one who had, basically spawned into existence our main character. I'm half expecting potentially that now maybe Nanami actually managed to be the one who spawned a older brother for herself. Nanami held that sword to her crest as though embracing it. Her tears overflowed in sorrow, falling toward it. The D-sword blinked a brilliant red, as if it were her pulse.
ないと。リミさんのこと許さない。そんな。ナナちゃんもキガロマニアックスだったの？今日だけはナナのわがまま受け止めてよ。
Nanami was crying. Even while she hung her head and fought to withstand it, tears kept falling from her bitterly. I took a single glance at her, then soon returned my line of sight to the ceiling, resuming the task of counting up the rusty spots.
抜かれたって僕には何もできないよ。僕は妄想の存在なんだから。妄想の。
そんなこと言わないでよ。お兄が妄想のはずないじゃん。だってナナは小さい頃のお兄のこと知ってるもん。いつもナナに世話かけさせてちっとも頼りにならないけど。
Yeah, okay, I think this is gonna be about to confirm my suspicions that I just came up with a few minutes ago. Well, I guess more like a minute ago.
でもお兄は昔からずっと
I see. It was as Nanami said. I remember the time when Nanami was still small. I had memories of my childhood. I remembered being unable to go on a field trip in elementary school and watching stuff on TV about the accident my classmates' bus had gotten into. I remembered Mr. Saito, my homeroom teacher who had died then too. The words of Rimi, someone totally unrelated to me, were the words of my sister who had been raised with me since we were little. Wasn't it beyond obvious which I ought to believe in? Rimi wasn't the one on the right. Nanami was the one in the right. If Nanami were the real thing, then so was I.
ななみ
I extended my hands toward Nanami. Nanami's existence was now my sole hope. Hers was the only existence that could deliver me.
助けてななみ
If Nanami's warmth were real, I could prove I was myself. The forlornly weeping Nanami wiped her tears, looked at me with reddened eyes, put on a tearful smile.
抱きしめてくれる
I nodded over and over. If it would bring Nanami salvation, if it would bring me salvation, I would embrace this cheeky little sister of mine happily, anytime. I would embrace her, the only one in this world, my sister, who shared the same blood as me.
ななみ助けて
Wanting to feel her warmth as soon as possible, I slowly circled my arms around the body that came leaping toward my chest. Tighter, tighter. I was about to hold her.
お兄
Just before then, ruh-roh. Nanami's body became enveloped in pale light, broke into an infinite number of tiny blue particles, and the particles burst in the air one after another like bubbles. And my outstretched hands embraced nothing. There was no warmth against my chest. Before my eyes, Nanami was annihilated. Nishijo Nanami held tight the D-sword born from her own blood, using her left hand alone. She only laid her right wrist against it. The blood dripping from the bandage on her wrist slid slowly down the gutter formed by her sword.
痛い知ってたのナナちゃんがギガロマニアックスだって
Rimi's question was aimed at Norase, who feigned being a mere bystander. No matter how much she glared at him, his face remained cool.
偶然の産物というものですよ。
Right.
ナナちゃんにひどいことしたくせに何が偶然なの
君の時のような苦労はしませんでした。我が社にはすでに覚醒させるためのマニュアルが確立していますから。もっとも西条匠にだけはそのマニュアルも通用しませんが、イレギュラーな化け物は扱いづらいことこの上ない。
化け物だなんて言わないで
君も化け物だからですか？
そういう話はしてない
虚無から生まれたものだからと言い換えた方が良かったですね。
Oh? Rimi averted her eyes and bit her lip in vexation. Her trembling still wouldn't stop. In spite of her thinking she had to save Nanami, her feet remained rooted to the floor and wouldn't move for her. Norase, on the other hand, was the very picture of calm as he appreciatively caressed Nanami on the head. Nanami hasn't shown any reaction, Face lowered, she repeated her shallow breaths.
闇のある一点だけを灯しているスポットライト。その周囲には無数の死体が転がっているのでしょうが、誰にも見えない。
そんな話やめて。
例えば君が自殺をしたら、スポットライトは数十センチ横にずれて君を闇で覆ってくれるでしょう。そして何も知らない別の誰かが代わりにスポットライトを浴びる。
At Rimi's sharp voice, Norase shrugged his shoulders and held his peace.
痛い。ナナちゃんを解放してほしいんだけど。
拘束は解きましたが、
連れて帰る。
構いませんよ。もう用済みです。
ナナちゃん、帰ろう。その件は消して。だったらバングル返して。返すから。
Rimi knew where Nanami's hand was in safekeeping. That day, the night Nanami's hand had been delivered to Takumi's room. After Takumi trembled in humiliation atop the roof at O Front, or Zero Front, and collapsed there, Rimi had retrieved the hand from inside his fridge. Now Shogun had it. He had preserved it, freezing it so it wouldn't rot. The bangle, too, was there.
お兄からもらったの。ナナのだよ。バングル。勝手に持って行って。ひどいよ。
Nanami's voice, whose words had also sounded like those uttered in delirium, grew more and more savage.
落ち着いて深呼吸して。自分をしっかり持って。
一つ聞きますが、
Norase's abrupt interjection. Rimi inwardly clicked her tongue.
西条匠にとっては、君たち二人のうち、どちらがより重要度が高い存在ですか？
Rimi lowered her eyes.
リミさんなんか。
In opposition, Nanami raised her gaze. Light had returned to her once empty eyes. It was so fiery as to be described as deviant. As Rimi hastily tried to brace herself, her body shrank back at the sudden arrival of darkness. It was as though the lights had been cut. Rimi didn't know whether it was something done deliberately or an accident.
負けちゃダメ。
Rimi murmured, as if to encourage herself. Her voice made the air tremble, but it soon melted into the darkness. She noticed she had stopped hearing that growling sound from Noah, too. She hated the dark, because it made her recollect memories of that time. Rimi turned her head. What spread out before her was an endlessly deep darkness. Not a single thing one might call light existed there. Could she see nothing because her surroundings were dark? Or was she not seeing anything because her vision wasn't working? She soon lost even her sense of up and down. She no longer had understood where she was. Darkness invaded her five senses, and she lost her ability to distinguish her own physical body. Or else it was as though her flesh had transfigured into vapor. As though her consciousness were spilling out of its vessel. And the past and the present melted together, and her memories began intermingling. When was now? When was the past? A single beam of light shone into a world covered in a perfect blackness. In the center of that circular spotlight, Rimi hugged her knees. Rimi looked at this from the midst of the darkness. It was the same as that time. That time. Rimi had possessed nothing before she knew it. She was being confined and tortured. Her psychological agony was worse than the physical agony. Hellish days, days of only enduring it. Rimi knew nothing of how she had been before even then. When and how had they imprisoned her? How long had they been torturing her? Rimi didn't know. She had a feeling that it wasn't amnesia. She felt as though, the instant she unexpectedly awoke, the consciousness known as herself had been born. Maybe the personality that had resided in this body until then had wanted to escape the overwhelming hardship and had committed suicide inside her own delusions. And maybe the current Rimi had then been born as a new personality. Maybe there had been many different personalities before her. Maybe even the name Sakihata Rimi was in truth something different each time. And to myself, I don't exist. She sensed something moving in the darkness. Rimi stood up and dragged herself toward its presence. When she moved, the spotlight followed her. The real identity of that presence was a dead Rimi, lying down there. Without looking at Rimi, Rimi murmured,
あなたは何番目？私は
"Oh, really?" Okay, well, that was my timer that just went off, so we're going to go ahead and end this part here. I will see you all next time. A quick reminder that if you enjoy this series or any of the other series on the channel, the two major ways to support the channel so that I can continue to bring you guys more content, new content, and better content, is to support the channel via either Patreon or Streamlabs. Take your pick as to which you prefer. Patreon comes with some goodies, namely early access to videos. However, Streamlabs, more of whatever it is that you decide to give to the channel, actually makes its way to the channel. Streamlabs does have an option for doing a monthly donation tip, whatever you want to call it. Personally, I generally refer to them as tips. But if you go the Streamlabs route, be warned, you don't get any goodies for going that route. That's just something that should be noted, is that you do not get any goodies if you go that route. But like I said, that'll be it for this part. Also, if you want to stay up to date with what's going on with the channel, any potential changes to my schedule or anything of that nature, I would highly, highly recommend that you join my Discord. There's a link to that also down below in the description. But until next time, a goodbye and farewell.